The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us here in FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. The state election is coming up very quickly on November 5th. And we're trying to speak to as many local candidates as possible so when you go to the polls, you'll make informed decisions. The 8th Bristol District State Representative seat will actually have a new representative this year, as State Representative Paul Schmidt is retiring and not running for re-election. There are 5 candidates running in the district. Here in Fall River, that only encompasses 3 of our precincts, precincts 1A, 6A, and 6B. And I'm pleased to be joined by one of those candidates today, Jesse St. Gelais, who is running unenrolled in the race. Jesse, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming by. So a lot of people in Fall River, probably most people, may not know who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Jesse St. Gelais. I was born in New Bedford, Massachusetts here, right on Cedar Grove Street in the West End, northwest end of New Bedford back in 1983. I've been in Acushnet ever since 1993. I run my family business here. It's a Help You Insure insurance agency. Been with that company about 25 years. I've been working there. The last 15 I've been running the business. I own some property in New Bedford as well, and in Acushnet. I have a wife and 3 children that attend the Acushnet schools. So I have one in elementary school, one in middle school, and then one in college in Bridgewater State. And my wife works for the New Bedford Housing Court. So, so I'm pretty rooted here. I serve as the vice president of the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick. It's a nonprofit organization. I'm currently serving on the board of directors for the New Bedford Port Society, also on the finance committee for that as well. We oversee like the Siemens Bethel downtown in New Bedford and, that sort of thing.
So, this is your first time running for office. Why this race and why now, I guess?
Yeah. You know what? I mean, this is my first time running for office. So when the seat became an open seat, it really got me thinking a lot, and I looked around and, I looked around at my government and I thought to myself, I said, I don't really see myself being represented there. And when I thought that, I really, thought long and hard, and I said, I think a lot of my neighbors feel the same. And being in the insurance industry, I'm dealing with different types of people every day. So I might have just, somebody just coming in regarding their auto insurance, and then the next customer might be somebody that owns a lot of commercial property in the downtown district of New Bedford or Fall River, for example. And, a lot of the same gripes all come back to the same thing. What's going on with our government? It just doesn't, it feels like we're not being represented. The working family, the business owner, the seniors, the veterans. There's a lot of underrepresented people out there. So really what I looked into here is that how could I best serve and fix this issue with what I can bring to the table as far as running a business and having a young family that's dealing with the struggles that we're all facing today with the cost of living increases and so on.
So let me ask you, this 8th Bristol District is very diverse, right? You've got
it is, yes.
Precincts in Fall River and New Bedford, 2 gateway cities, and of course you've got the full town of Westport,
yeah,
and parts of Freetown and Acushnet, where you're from.
Yeah.
How do you plan to work with those divergent constituencies, if you will? You said you were born in New Bedford, so you do have some sort of a city background. Again, your wife works there.
Yeah.
How do you balance those the interests of those diverse communities? Yeah,
it is very different. I mean, you have a lot of agricultural and fishing, so a lot of farming and fishing, going on in this area. I have a lot of small business. It is very diverse, but I have a lot of good working relationships with the current delegation right now. One of my good friends is Chris Hendricks, who's a state representative right now. I helped him with his campaign in the beginning there. We go back to high school. As far as the city of New Bedford, I have a lot of good working relationships with the city councilors, council president, know the mayor pretty well. He's actually a friendly son with me. As far as even Mayor Coogan, I sat with him recently. The select boards out in the towns like Freetown, for example. I know them all pretty well. I think that we can get some things done. The communication is open with me and them already.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what are some of the issues that are important as you run and speak to voters?
Well, I'll tell you right now, local aid is huge, right? And when you look at how these towns and cities are struggling to try to make ends meet, there's not a lot of aid coming back from the government. We have to make sure that we tackle that and grab that and get that back here, so that way we have some working capital to fund these programs. You can't fund everything on a grant, as you know, right? So we have to take care of that. Education is something. I know, for example, when I was sitting with Mayor Coogan out here, busing students, the inequities of, basically the funding that we're not getting as far as, some students that go to regional schools versus public schools. It's inequitable as far as the funding formula on that. And what happens then is that if we're not getting enough funding for the students that attend the public schools, well, they're going to be looking at the taxpayers and their residential tax or commercial tax. So,
yeah. Let me ask you, you decided to run unenrolled. If elected, do you feel that could be an issue in terms of working with Democrats and or Republicans?
No, not at all. Actually, I think that's a positive. One of the great things here about me being an independent is that I'm willing to work with everyone. Everyone has a seat at my table. I think I'll be sought after as far as them wanting to work with me. I could be their swing vote. So I don't see it as a weakness. I see it as a strength because most of us, as you know, here in this state, what is it, about 63% of us are unenrolled, which a lot of people identify with what I'm standing for here. We got to put the people first. It's people over party. We have to get rid of the division and the stalemate that politically we end up in when people are towing that party line a little bit more than holding the line for the people that they represent. So that's what I'm all about.
You mentioned education here in Fall River. The city, and I would expect New Bedford as well, has benefited from the Student Opportunity Act, where more money was actually sent to those communities because of past inequities. You talk about inequities in funding. Are there more inequities maybe in the towns that you may represent? I mean, how do you...
So, in regard to that, I mean, that's a great... Student Opportunity Act is great. We've seen the results of that. The only issue that I can see there is that it hasn't caught up with the rate of inflation, right? And now we're having a lot of shortfalls in the budgets, and that on top of everything else that the towns are trying to do at this point. We have to tackle that. So the funding formula that is currently in place, we have to make sure that it works. So it has to be practical. We have to have a little bit more of a common sense approach. That one, we are seeing the results of that though, where it hasn't caught up. So we're a couple of years behind on that.
Big deal across the country over the past couple of years has been the rates of inflation. Cost of living for people. Every city and town is facing it. How can you, as one state representative, maybe work with your colleagues and the governor to help cities like Fall River and New Bedford and the towns to try to find more affordable housing and make things easier?
You have to go up there and you got to work with the delegation. You have to work locally with the people here and represent them. Go up there, grab that money, help out. Bring some aid back to the communities. As far as housing issues, it's all trickled down to this unfortunate economy that we have right now. We need to make sure that jobs are here. We need to make sure that we have an attractive area for business to thrive here in these communities.
The legislature passed a housing bond bill recently, this past session, over $5 billion that's supposed to help toward that. What do you know of that, and how do you think you can work getting in to help spend that money back into this?
Again, you have to go up there, you have to aggressively approach that. So on the state and federal level, you have to communicate with the delegation and fight for your community. I do feel that, for a little while here, we haven't really had that aggressive approach with trying to get the funding, get that local aid here. We have to pull that here. We have to, essentially make the deal up there, right? And really stress the importance of our community. And and there's plenty of money to go around. We did have a lot of money a few years ago, didn't we? Unfortunately, a little bit of the mismanagement took place there, and spending our tax dollars elsewhere and cutting services from those who need it the most.
And that's something I was going to ask you about. The past couple of fiscal years, especially since coming out of COVID, the state had quite a bit of money. They had the ARPA money as well from the federal government to spend. There were surpluses. This past year, it looks like there was a little bit of a deficit. Again, the receipts not coming in as high. You've also said, in some of your literature, that you want to be fiscally responsible, but no new taxes. So if finances get tight, how do you get that money?
Yeah, it's always a tough balance, isn't it? You know, but just like anybody running a business, you have to, you know, you can't base everything on a grant or a speculative gain, right? You have to actually look at what's coming in, and then you might have to cut back in certain areas. So again, with the mismanagement of the funds that we had, what was it, $1 billion or so that was spent on the migrant issue? I've been hearing that at a lot of doorsteps, that a lot of people are upset with that. Their money was used somewhere else and instead of on them. We have a lot of seniors and veterans that require these services. Our kids need that too. Again, back to education. I think that if you really take a strong look at the performance of the schools and make sure that they're doing very well, you're going to see a lot of people want to move to those communities too. That eventually will grow your tax base.
Based on your literature, you also say you're against term limits. So
yeah.
what do you think?
Isn't that an interesting one?
Well, what do you think? What do you think it should be?
See that, everybody? You can get rid of me. So, but no, term limits, though, I'll tell you, when you look around, and again, I'm a political outsider, I'd say, right? So I think when you're green, you're growing, you're ripe, you're rotten, right? And we've seen that a lot here. It's either move up or move out. So I do feel that could be maybe one way that we can really put an influx of new blood coming in. I am not afraid of that. I think that if you look at it, term limits on the presidential level, it's there for a reason, right? Why can't we have it a little bit more on the local level? So I think that is definitely something we need to really look at seriously, and make sure that people aren't staying in power for about 30 some odd years. And because sometimes they might get a little lazy. Let's face it. I mean, we've seen it. We have some lazy politicians that instead of serving the people, they're serving themselves. And that's where I think that really kind of accentuates the voter apathy around here, that people start giving up on the government, because again, what they don't see are good results out of it.
I asked you earlier about being able to work with colleagues if elected, being an unenrolled candidate. Here in Fall River, you'll be working with Representative Carol Fiola, Representative Alan Sylvia, Senator Michael Rodrigues from Westport. How do you, where their focus is primarily around this neck of the woods, right? Fall River area, Carol Fiola, the other part of Freetown.
Yeah.
And then, here in Fall River. How do you try to work with colleagues, say in our region, to try to meet the needs here? And I guess how important is that relationship going to be?
It's very important. It all starts with a conversation. We sit down, we all have a common goal in mind. I mean, they're great people. I'm sure that they want their area to be successful too. So, you got to roll up your sleeves, sit down with them, have a real conversation about where we're headed and how I can help them in any way to get to that goal. So, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. We have a very good delegation around here. I think that, when we all put our heads together, we're going to make very good things happen for our area.
Traditionally, the 8th Bristol District seat has been, using the air quotes, a Westport state representative seat. Westport is the only town that the entire town falls within the district. You had, of course, Representative Schmid, Michael Rodrigues before them, and there are others in that even this part of Fall River has gotten some representation there. The other four candidates running in the race are from Westport. Are you hopeful that the votes get split there? I mean, how do you approach that? Well,
how I approach it, I've touched more doorsteps than I think all these candidates combined. I'm definitely well over 5,000 personally that I've touched. I know that, in regard to this race, what I'm doing is I'm making sure that I go to the source, I go to the people. They're my answers. That's who I represent. So I'm only really focused on that. As far as cutting up the vote in Westport, we'll see how it goes. I love Westport. I love all these towns. I'm making sure that since March 6th, actually, when I took my nomination papers out, I made it a point every day to go and campaign. So I've been working every day on this campaign to make sure that I can meet as many of you out there and really make sure that your voice is heard, and through me, God willing.
All right. We're going to wrap up now. I'm going to give you the opportunity to speak to the voters of Fall River and why they should consider you for their next state representative.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jesse St. Gelais. I ask for your vote on November 5th. If you want a government and a representative that is going to work for you, that's going to listen to you and never give up on you, you're looking at them right here. We are at a breaking point right now where we have a lot of division. I think that it's very important that you give an independent candidate a chance to go ahead and represent all of you. It's time that we put people first, put the party differences aside, and actually get things done. I will commit to you to always represent you. Never going to hold the party line. I'm going to hold the line for you. Thank you, and I ask for your vote on November 5th.
All right, Justice St. Gelais, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. All the best.
All right, thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us here at FRC Media. Please make a point to vote on November 5th.